Hello, it's Tuesday, May 21st, 2019, and you're watching Life Talk. I'm Mark Crutcher, your genial host, and I'm joined by the usual suspects, my daughter Sheila. Hey, Doppy.
Hi.
And the other usual suspect, my comical sidekick here at
Comical
sidekick
yes.
at Life Dynamics, Rennie Hobbs.
Hello, good
And-
to be here.
And Ernie.
We're gonna, just hang on a second. I'm going to introduce Ernie the frillnecked lizard because he's going to be the central theme of our show today. His cohorts in the Republican Party. Lots of things are happening as a result of the legislation that was passed in Alabama, and some of them are good, some of them aren't so good.
Yeah.
And I guess even in the areas where things aren't so good, the ultimate result of that will be good. This state of Alabama passed basically a total protection bill for the unborn. And boy, it has set off a firestorm.
Who hasn't ever?
And I mean, there are other states too that are also passing pro-life legislation.
The heartbeat bill is really gaining momentum.
Thank you, New York, for what you have done. All of these pro-life states are now pushing to protect the unborn.
Several things are happening here as a result of this, and I want to make people understand something. What we're seeing right now is just a minor sneak preview of what it would be like if there was actually a total protection of the unborn on a national level, something in the Supreme Court or a personhood ruling or whatever it might be.
That completely got rid of abortion.
I mean, because let's think about it for a minute. You've got a relatively small state in the South passes basically a total ban on abortion.
Yes.
It may or may not get heard by the Supreme Court. It certainly won't become law for the whole country. And these people are melting
They are going
down.
insane.
It reminds me of when Trump was elected, and you see the video montages of all these people at these rallies just crying and melting down, and I'm going to move to Canada.
Yes.
Move already.
See
I
ya.
mean, all these celebrities, they're saying, I'm going to move to Canada. Well, you have the
Not
money.
one of them is
you have the money. Move. Go
they're-
ahead.
Yeah, they're saying that this isn't even going to make it to the Supreme Court or the lower court because of Casey, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, and the undue burden that's. But you know what? Let's let it play out
how it
here.
does.
Yeah.
But
And
here's the thing that we need to understand.
pray that God will prevail.
That's right. He will prevail. He always does.
Yeah.
But let's understand, like I said, this is a sneak preview of the future, and we better be prepared for this because someday, I'm telling you, it won't be just one state. It won't be an Alabama or a Louisiana or
Georgia.
a Texas or Georgia or whoever it might be.
Right.
It won't be that one state. It'll be a national deal. And we better get prepared
Yes.
for this.
Well, more and more people are becoming unhinged, and they're, they're just going out there, just going crazy. And more politicians are openly campaigning for extreme abortion laws.
Right.
I mean, all abortion laws are extreme, but in the past you would have politicians who would, barely speak up on abortion. Now you have politicians like Warren, Biden, Sanders.
They're being forced to expose what they really are.
Yeah, I mean, they are openly, stating some of the most extreme things to show their undying support for abortion, and these people are running for president.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Lynn says that she hears people talk about state rights all the time. Is it possible for the Supreme Court to make the laws like Alabama the law in the U.S.?
It's possible, and this is something we've warned about in the past, and that is, don't get hung up on this deal that this needs to be sent back to the states, because if it's just sent back to the states because the Supreme Court rules that the Constitution is silent on abortion, it'll be the worst thing that ever happened for the pro-life effort.
Or if Roe versus Wade gets overturned, you hear people all the
Right.
time, pro-lifers,
That's what I'm saying.
say, it needs to go to the Supreme Court so Roe versus Wade can get overturned. That would be the best day for the pro-life movement. No, it wouldn't. It would be the worst state, because then it would become a states' right issue, and each state will determine.
That protects not one baby in America, because state lines are freely crossed. So if Texas outlaws abortion and Colorado makes it legal or keeps it legal, every baby in Texas is still exposed because he could be taken to Colorado.
And you could be guaranteed that California would be a hothouse for abortion.
Oh, yeah, it would be,
And NARAL and Planned Parenthood and whoever else are putting things together right now to help people get across state lines in Alabama, and if this were to become the law.
And to finish out on her question, though, it is possible that this legislation could be sent to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court could look at it and say, okay, this establishes personhood for the unborn. Now it's nationwide and it applies to every state. And it's going to be, I think there'll be blood in the streets over this. We better be prepared for that.
If it is a personhood ruling, then, that puts an end to abortion, because that says, yes, these are babies.
That's right.
They have a right to life, as in the Constitution, gives a right to life to all.
Yep. But what we're seeing right now in the media, they're doing their part. They're lying through their teeth, and they're putting these pro-aborts on television, allowing them to lie through their teeth.
Yeah.
And the Hollywood types, the elitist in Hollywood and in academia, they're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I have some examples where you go.
Yeah, well, I mean, Lady Gaga and Rihanna, and I mean, you just go down the list.
What
Pat Robertson with the 700 Club.
Well, that's a different issue.
Yeah.
But
We're going to get to that in a minute. But
I mean, we're talking about the venomous nature of them, and I have some great examples of media stooges who think that they are smart, they know better, think that they, are experts on the abortion issue. Like, for instance, Jim Carrey. People think he's a funny guy. He did artwork about aborting Alabama governor after she signed the bill. Right. I mean, that's not artwork. That's obscene.
Right.
If, it was a conservative doing that.
It's a call for violence.
Yeah. If it was a conservative doing that, then they would be banned from Twitter. Right. I mean, that, the picture shows sucking the brains out. That's what actually happens during abortions. That's what actually happens to living human beings.
Right.
And then Bill Maher, he did a Facebook post about Trump being a good reason for abortion, and people thought that was so clever and hilarious.
Yeah,
and
so
then
funny.
Of course, Alyssa Milano's stupid sex strike.
And you know what? We're all for that.
Yeah. I mean, Alyssa Milano trying to get her 15 minutes of fame back, and then, going on a sex strike. Who cares if you're on a sex strike? Alyssa Milano, please be on one.
Right.
And then this Sarah Silverman, she's
such a thorn.
She's such a.
I mean, she's not funny.
Right.
She's annoying. People don't like her. She teamed up with Lady Parts Justice League, which is a big pro-abortion group, and they held a telethon. During the telethon, they played abortion charades, they gave rants, and they even did an interview with abortionist Willie Parker, the same Willie Parker who was recently accused of sexually assaulting a woman.
Right.
Yep.
And they were openly, for Willie Parker being on there. Talk about really being with women. And she also stated that there are certain laws that would want her to eat aborted fetuses.
Well, she's the same one, and people we can't really use the language that she uses, but you can go on YouTube and see her little thing that was supposed to be so funny about her date with Jesus.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
No, I do remember that.
And it's totally disgusting. And she's on a date out on a date with Jesus, and the language that they have this fake Jesus using is just reprehensible. But anyway,
I just want to point off, and there are some people that you expect this from, but like Mark Hamill, who's in the Star Wars movies, he was there behind the scenes. He worked on 2 pieces of art to be auctioned off. I mean,
well, the auctions these people have. I mean, Sarah Silverman and who else was it that auctioned off their used tampons to raise money for the.
Oh, I don't.
that was a while
ago. The MSNBC.
Well, I think Sarah Silverman did it too.
But
yeah, they were. I mean, some of the things these people are doing are.
And the person that played Gosnell, the lead actor, he's against the Alabama abortion bill too, and he played in the Gosnell movie as a pro-life.
What people need to do to understand that what we're saying here, we're not exaggerating. We created a website for this, peopleofchoice.com. Go to that website and just go through it. It'll take you maybe an hour to go through the entire thing. You will be utterly astonished at what you see.
And if you run across anything and you'd like to share it so we can put it up, send it to me at renee@prolifeamerica.com.
Yeah, for people of choice.
For the people of choice, absolutely.
You need to understand what kind of people we're dealing with here.
Well, when you have the mindset that killing babies is perfectly okay, what aren't these people willing to do?
There's nothing. There's nothing over that line. You've already crossed the last line you can cross when you're in that
Yeah,
position.
and Jeffrey says abstinence works, and yes, it does.
Yeah, it does. It works every time it's tried.
It's 100%. It's the most 100%
only-
effective solution.
Right. The other thing that's happening, though, is not just that the pro-aborts are melting down and being exposed as the kind of moral defectives that they are and the barbarians and savages that they are. We're seeing that on the pro-life side and very often on the Republican side, it's separating the men from the boys
Absolutely.
on the pro-life issue. And that's why I brought up our buddy here, Ernie, the frillnecked lizard,
Yep.
because we talked about him many times in the past. This is the symbol of the Republican Party. It's not the elephant. The elephant's a noble animal. The frillnecked lizard, for those who don't know, is a little lizard. I think they live in Australia, if I'm not mistaken. But they do this little act where they launch back on their back legs, and they stand up and they flare out this big frill thing around their neck, and they hiss and they bark and they do all kinds of threatening-looking gestures to ward off enemies. But the second another animal approaches on them or a human approaches them, they take off running. They jump up on their back legs and they take off running.
And they go up into trees too. They don't just like run off. They climb up into a tree.
I'm
Get
safe
away.
up here.
So they look real threatening and real intimidating at the beginning when they're back there they're rocking back and forth and barking and hissing. But the second you take one step forward, they go off. That's the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And what's happened here in Alabama has put a lot of these guys in a pickle, and you've seen them now starting to run for the tall grass. The Pat Robertson is the one that just really infuriates me. And he says this Alabama law has gone too far. He used to be pro-life.
Yeah.
If you're pro-life, you can't go too far. You either protect a baby or you kill them.
Yeah.
And there is no such thing as going too far. You can't partially kill a baby.
Yeah.
No. Either it's the death of the killing of a baby and the death of them, or it isn't.
Right.
There's no in between.
And
And I know that we can keep going down and just list people after
Right.
people, but there's a Fox News contributor, and he writes for Town Hall, Guy Benson. He says that it's gone too far as well. And let me mention our sweetheart Tommy Lahren here, that is a pro-choice conservative. She says that
she's a pathological.
yeah, there's extremism on both sides of the abortion issue, and that she is that the Alabama law is too restrictive and will not reduce abortions.
How is it
one
too
of the-
restrictive?
One of the things, first off, how can you be too extreme when you're saying we're going to protect a baby?
Yeah.
And we're going to protect everybody. They have a right to life no matter what the circumstance. How is that extreme? I don't understand that. That used to be the way the country was run.
Yeah.
But one of the things that bothers me is I'm seeing this even on things like Fox and on other conservative media. They're calling this Alabama legislation or restrictive. It's protective. You're using the abortion industry's language when you say it's a restrictive law.
Right.
It's a protective law. And we need, at least our own people should be not using the word restrictive.
Restrictive makes it seem like it's a choice. It's not a choice. Murder
Right.
is not a
Legitimate
choice.
choice. Now, last night, I've said on here before, and I've gotten some flack for it, that Sean Hannity, or as I call him, Sean Vanity, is not pro-life, and he can tell that lie all he wants to. But now he's being exposed, and he is saying basically that the Alabama thing has gone too far, and he thinks there should be some exceptions. He had him on. He talked about him last night on his show on Fox. He also had Tammy Bruce on there, which is one of his regular guests, and she's a former ultra-leftist who got into the liberal community based on her radical pro-abortion views. That's what she admits, that's what drove her to become a liberal. She's now changed over to the conservative part, but she's kept her radical pro-abortion views. She was on Hannity last night, and I don't know if Hannity is just more pro-abortion than we think he is, or if he's totally uninformed or whatever.
Or stupid, just plain stupid.
But he allowed Tammy Bruce to go on that show and lie through her teeth. She was lying. She knew she was lying. At one point, she said that Roe versus Wade, she supported Roe versus Wade. She didn't like all this extremism. She's trying to appear as reasonable. So she doesn't favor, allowing abortions after the baby's been born. Like, that's really stepping out there. Boy, you're really leaping out there to do that. But she says she supports Roe versus Wade that made it legal for abortion in the first 3 months. She's lying through her teeth, and Sean Hannity knows she was lying.
Abortion is from Roe versus Wade and Casey.
No, Doe versus Bolton.
Well, Doe versus Bolton makes it legal for all 9 months. It doesn't give a time frame of, abortion's legal this period, not, this period.
Doe versus Bolton wipes out any restriction that was in Roe versus Wade.
Yeah.
It makes it legal right up to the moment of birth. Tammy Bruce knew she was lying through her teeth. Sean Hannity knew she was lying through her teeth, and he sat right there and didn't say a word and let her get away with it. And now she comes off looking like, here's a reasonable pro-choice person. And this is the way, and she says this is the way most pro-choice people are. That's a lie.
No.
He sat there and let that woman lie through her teeth. And what we're seeing here,
He doesn't have a backbone.
they don't have any backbone. And what we're seeing again is that the frillnecked Republicans are being exposed. The Sean Vanities of the world are being exposed. And this is a good thing, because it tells us that when the real showdown comes,
Right.
when this Alabama thing is spread around the whole country, we need to know who we can count on and who we can't.
That's right.
And we're finding out that about half these Republicans cannot be counted on, if not more than half.
See, I don't get why people think that you're pro-life even with exceptions. I mean, it's either a baby, a human being, or it isn't. Just because the circumstances of how the baby was conceived, that doesn't matter. You're putting the value of the baby based on the circumstances. What gives people the right to say, this baby is valuable, while this
that's
baby
what I would have.
isn't?
I was about to jump through the television last night, and I like to grab Sean Hannity and just ask him something very simple. When you talk about these exceptions, but I'm pro-life.
Yeah.
I'm very pro-life, but I have these exceptions. What I want to know is, I want you to paraphrase what you're saying, and here's what you're saying. You're saying, I think most babies should be protected, but not all of them.
Yeah.
I'm okay with these babies being killed, but I'm pro-life. This is I want to know, I want to ask him how he can justify this argument.
Tell that to the baby whose brains are getting sucked out, whose limbs are getting teared apart. It doesn't matter to them whether they were conceived in rape or through certain exceptions.
Well, and this does include our president too, unfortunately.
He has made
how he sent out that Twitter that there's exceptions with rape and incest.
But I'll tell you something, these people down in Alabama went out on a limb for the unborn child. They did what was right. They did what the pro-life movement has been asking them to do for over 45 years now, right?
Yep.
Meanwhile, Republicans, their own people in other states, are distancing themselves from these people.
Unfortunately, Texas hasn't been passing pro-life laws.
Well, we need to go out here.
California people.
We need to go out here and make sure that these people in Alabama that went out on the limb for the unborn know that we're there. Instead of the Sean Hannitys of the world, these people go out on a limb and Sean Hannity starts sawing off the limb.
Yeah.
And the other Republicans that he so gladly shills for on Fox.
Yeah. Well, there's just a small group of us that are willing to stand up and fight for the babies. And there's actually a quote, and I wish I had that quote, I could remember it, but it doesn't take a large group of people to do something. It's a small group that gets things
That's
done.
Margaret Mead's quote.
Okay.
It doesn't take, so like I say, it doesn't take large groups.
Yeah.
And it's small groups can accomplish a lot. In other words, and she went on to say, in fact, in the history of the world, it's always been small groups that did accomplish.
Well, I will say that our group is expanding, and
Right.
more and more people are becoming pro-life.
But we need to make sure they understand what it means.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you're a Sean Hannity pro-lifer. It means you're a true pro-lifer.
Yeah.
And, I've seen I saw the other day, Kevin McCarthy, Congress, I can't remember where he's from, I think California, but he's always claimed to be so hardcore pro-life. But, he's troubled by this Alabama legislation. He thinks it went a bridge too far or whatever the nonsense was. You cannot go too far if you're talking about saving a baby's life. It's not possible to do.
And Lola on here says that Hannity has lied before, and that he's responsible for Mike Huckabee, the loss in the Florida primaries for the first time he ran as president, and then she stopped watching him a long time ago.
He's a fraud, and all his language, his rhetoric to the contrary is a lie. He's a fraud.
He's been listening to.
And I don't want to make it look like we're picking on Sean Hannity, because we're not.
There's many others.
He's just a representative
Yeah.
of all these other frilled-necked Republicans that are out there.
Yeah.
And we're also starting to see now more violence escalating on the pro-abortion side, which we've always predicted would happen.
Well, I mean, there's always been violence. They've always been violent people, but now they're more and more people are being violent, and they're more openly being violent.
Right, that's right. You know, one thing I think we need to understand, we're seeing now who we can count on and who we can't, and that's a good thing for us. Don't look out here and say, okay, we now know that we lost Sean Hannity. No, you never had him. Mm-hmm. Now the only difference is you now know you didn't have him.
It's confirmed.
So you don't go out here and count on him to do something for you and then have him run for the hills. Yeah. And that's true with all of these Republicans that are running for the hills right now, and the Pat Robertsons of the world and all these other people that we've gone too far. This is a bridge too far. We're protecting too many babies. But the other thing we need to understand is something I've talked about before. Is what I call the rubber band effect. If you stretch a big rubber band across a field and you start pushing it toward a goal, the further you push that rubber band, the harder it pushes back. Mm-hmm. The closer you get to the goal, the harder it is to push that rubber band. That's the situation here with the pro-life movement. Yeah. It's going to get harder. The closer we get to winning, the harder the rubber band's going to be to push. The more the other side's going to push back. The more we're going to be abandoned by the frauds and the phonies like Hannity and Kevin McCarthy and all these others, Pat Robertson. These people are going to run for the hills.
Yeah.
And we just need to recognize that. We're in what people need to understand from the pro-life standpoint. We're in this battle alone. And I've made this analogy, and not just because I'm a loyal Texan, but to the Alamo. At the Alamo, it wasn't until Travis brought all the men together and said, hey, we're waiting on all these thousands of other people to come. They're not coming. Yep. Nobody's coming. And it wasn't until then, and he told them, Santa Ana's offered you the opportunity to leave the Alamo. We're going to open the gate. Anybody who wants to walk out can walk out. You can take your guns, you can take your horses, you can take whatever you want to. You don't owe Texas anything. Walk out if you want to. And Santa Ana has granted you free passage. All this 5,000 soldiers that are outside here have been told to let you leave. None of them left. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until they were told that you're here alone that they understood what the stakes were and what they were fighting for. It wasn't until that moment that they understood it.
And I mean, if it wasn't for that fact, remember the Alamo wouldn't be as powerful.
Right.
And, that's the true thing with the pro-life movement and the abortion battle. Someday in history, people are going to look back on this and say, hey, this group of people
stood and fought,
and that's honorable.
Right. And, the Alamo was a complete disaster for the people that were there. All of them, all 187 of them got murdered, got killed. But if they hadn't done that, Sam Houston wouldn't have won Texas independence 6 weeks later, because it bled Santa Ana's army. He had to chase Sam Houston down. When he caught up with Sam Houston, Houston turned around and attacked them. And in 18 minutes, the battle for Texas independence was won. And that would not have been possible without the sacrifices that the men at the Alamo made. And that's the analogy we need to think about. Mm-hmm. And we need to recognize that, like what Travis recognized at the Alamo when he said, look, I'm getting all these letters and these things from generals, and he said they're not worth the paper they're written on. He said, and he told his men, you can leave if you want to, but I'm telling you right now, nobody's coming. And this is it.
And the Revolutionary War is another good example, and Dunkirk, and I mean, all these, in history, it's the people who stand and fight that are remembered.
Right. And maybe they die.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll all die
Yeah.
to protect the unborn. If that's what has to happen, that's what has to happen. And maybe we'll be dead and gone. I've gone over this with you many times, and that's why I'm training you to take over one day. I'm convinced that if I don't live long enough to see the end of it, you will. You guys will see it. But my job is not to worry about that. My job is to pave the way, which is what, like I said, the guys at the Alamo did. They made it possible for Sam Houston to win at San Jacinto 6 weeks later in a battle that only lasted 18 minutes. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to understand that. And the main thing is we've got to accept that we're alone. The frillnecked Republicans aren't going to help us.
The church.
The church is not going to help us. They're not coming They're not going to come riding over the hill at the last moment and help us. It's just not going to happen. So if you can't accept that, just like Travis said to those guys, we're here alone. If you can't accept that, you can leave. But nobody's coming. He said, nobody's coming. We're here. This is it. So you can do what you want to do. Same thing is true with the pro-lifers. And this situation in Alabama has absolutely proven that beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the pro-life movement is here alone. So you can leave if you want to, but I don't know about you guys. I'm standing fighting, and I'm not walking away. I haven't put 45 years almost 40 years into this deal.
Lynn is shocked that the church is part of that group.
The church is part of that group.
Yeah, and it's not, Protestants or Catholics. It's both.
Right.
I mean, the church overall does not speak up and stand against abortion.
Well,
It took me a long time to
Accept that.
that, yeah.
but it's a fact.
It is a fact.
I mean, there are some
Yeah, there are
churches
some out
out there, but overall, as a whole,
Yep. And so just accept that. And like I said, I think this Alabama experience is absolute, irrefutable proof of what we're saying. We're in this alone. And if you can't live with that, then good luck to you. Let's take out a few minutes for robots, and then we'll wrap this up.
In 1973, the U.S. Supreme Court legalized abortion nationwide. The decision is called Roe versus Wade, and those who defend it are known as robots. This is how they think.
Those horrible pictures the pro-life movement claims to be abortions are fakes. All that is removed in an abortion is tissue, not a baby.
Think about this. If the abortion lobby is not lying about these pictures being phony, why wouldn't they simply show the real ones? They certainly have access to them, and all they would have to do is provide before and after pictures of what's being aborted. And if they showed that we've been using phony, made-up images, our credibility would go up in smoke. The pro-life movement would be destroyed overnight, and the abortion lobby would win the battle over abortion instantly. Of course, these people have never done that, and they're never going to. After all, they know better than anyone else on earth that the images of abortion used by the pro-life movement are real. What the public should be asking is why the abortion lobby becomes so hysterical over these graphic images. If a legal abortion is such a positive thing, not to mention a fundamental constitutional right, the pro-choice crowd and their politicians should be proud of these images. But of course they aren't. Instead, they become unhinged when we show the battered and dismembered corpses of the babies they kill. The fact is, they panic over these photos for the same reason they panic over technology like fetal surgery and ultrasound. Simply put, these images expose realities that the abortion lobby desperately needs to keep hidden. They transform the argument that unborn children are living human beings from a belief into an observable fact. And for those who try to defend legalized abortion, that is a devastating punch. What the abortion lobby realizes is that when people see these images, the only way for them to support legalized abortion is to either deny what they are seeing with their own eyes or harden their hearts to it. Okay, we're back. We've, I think, done all we can do up on this issue. Have you got anything there on the...
Just Lynn says, keep it up, Mark and company. We are grateful for all you do. True news.
Good. Before we go on talking about the times that we're in, and you mentioned the American Revolution, Thomas Paine made a statement that we've all heard millions of times, and it was during a time in the American Revolution when things were going badly, And
There were
Washington.
lots of times. Like,
there were lots of times,
yeah.
And they didn't have much support. And they were only about a third of the population in America that made up the so-called Continental Army or the resistance to the British. And they were up against it at one point, and right after Christmas one year, and Washington's men were freezing, and they had lost some battles. They were getting pushed around, and it looked pretty bleak. And Thomas Paine wrote this, quote, "These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their country. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman," unquote. And
It's good.
Washington read that statement from Thomas Paine to his men after that debacle there, and they were, like I said, they were freezing to death after the Christmas that year. And
If it wasn't for men like them, we wouldn't be sitting here today in America.
right,
And
America would still be part of England, and Texas would still be part of Mexico.
Yep.
So, who knows where the world would be in that situation. But the fact is, these are the times that try men's souls. We've had this major victory in Alabama. We've seen the people that are supposed to be on our side run for the hills, and the pro boards and the media and the academia and Hollywood and all these people jump on board with the pro aborts. Tough. We still stand and fight.
That's right.
Anyway, y'all got anything else?
I don't have anything else. Just if you have any show ideas, if you'll send them to me either via email or call or private message me on Facebook or whatever. That's the main thing that I'm on is Facebook. And we'll give you a mug. And anyways, if you can see that, we'll give you the mug if we use your show idea. So,
Yep.
and we appreciate all that you
Yep.
your feedback, everything that you give
Yeah,
us.
let us know what you think about the shows. We're going to try to be making some changes to update Live Talk here. We've done that million times in the past, but we're going to look at doing some things here in the future. So if you got any ideas that you'd like to see us change to or do differently, be sure and let us know. Anyway, that's all the time we have. Until next Tuesday, remember, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win, because winning is how the killing stops. We'll see you next week.